We are taught from a young age to be kind, to be the light in the room, to extend grace even when it's hard. But what happens when that kindness is repeatedly met with manipulation, selfishness, and disregard for your well-being? It's time to have a real conversation about boundaries, self-respect, and knowing when to stop being kind to those who do not value you, the narcissists in our lives. We live in a culture that encourages giving without limit, loving without question, and being endlessly patient. But true kindness is not about being a doormat. True kindness requires discernment. It requires strength, courage, and above all, the ability to say no more. So let's talk about why it's okay to stop being kind to narcissists and how doing so can empower you to reclaim your life. Before we dive in, I just want to take a quick moment to invite you to join this community. If you're finding value in what we're sharing, I'd love for you to take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And if this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Together, we're building a space where authenticity, vulnerability, and growth can thrive. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. When we constantly offer kindness without boundaries, we are in essence enabling unhealthy behavior. It's easy to think that kindness is the ultimate solution, an antidote to conflict, a balm for hurt, and a way to smooth over rough patches in relationships. But when it's not paired with boundaries, kindness becomes an excuse for bad behavior to continue unchecked. Imagine this. You give and give, thinking that if you're kind enough, if you make enough sacrifices, maybe the person will change. Maybe they'll see your goodness and treat you with the same kindness in return. But that's not how it works with narcissists. Narcissistic behavior thrives in an environment where their manipulation is met with compliance. The more you give without limits, the more they take. You think you're helping them, but in reality, you're just feeding their sense of entitlement and reinforcing their harmful patterns. It's important to understand that real kindness isn't about ignoring your own needs or tolerating harmful behavior. Kindness with no boundaries doesn't protect you. It leaves you vulnerable. It opens the door for someone to take advantage of your generosity, your time, your compassion, and your emotional resources. The more you give without considering the cost to your own well-being, the more you empower the other person to keep taking. In a relationship with a narcissist, kindness without boundaries becomes a way for them to maintain control over you, to manipulate you into a state where you feel responsible for their happiness, their emotions, and their needs. When you allow this to happen, it's not only harmful to you, but it also reinforces a cycle where the narcissist believes they are entitled to your kindness without giving anything in return. The dynamic shifts and you begin to lose yourself in the process. You start to feel empty, resentful, and emotionally drained while they continue to exploit your kindness for their own benefit. It's vital to recognize that boundaries are not selfish. They are an act of self-preservation. Boundaries are a way of protecting yourself from being used, mistreated, and drained. They allow you to love and be kind, but in a way that honors your own needs and values. When you set a boundary with a narcissist, you are not being unkind. You are simply refusing to participate in a cycle of exploitation and manipulation. You're drawing a line that says, I will not allow you to take from me without ever giving back. And here's the hard truth. The narcissist is not going to like it. They thrive on control. And they will likely react with anger, guilt, or even more manipulation. They'll try to make you feel like you're being cruel, that you're being unreasonable, or that your boundaries are too high. But that's the moment when you have to trust yourself and your own sense of worth. You have every right to protect your emotional and mental health. And setting those boundaries is not just about stopping the toxic behavior. It's about affirming that you deserve respect, care, and love in return. When kindness is paired with boundaries, it becomes a force for good. It's not about withdrawing love, but about offering it in a way that's sustainable, healthy, and fulfilling. Kindness with boundaries means you choose to love in a way that supports both you and the other person. It means loving yourself enough to stop tolerating harmful behavior and starting to prioritize your own well-being. So if you find yourself constantly being kind to someone who takes and takes, it's time to pause and reflect. Are you enabling them to continue treating you in ways that aren't healthy? Are you protecting yourself, or are you sacrificing your peace for the sake of keeping the peace with them? True kindness begins with self-awareness, self-respect, and the courage to set boundaries that protect you, not just them. Respect is one of the most fundamental human needs. It's not something that should be earned only through actions or efforts. It's something that should be given freely as a basic acknowledgement of each person's humanity. Yet, in relationships with narcissistic individuals, we often find ourselves trapped in a cycle where we feel like we have to prove ourselves worthy of respect. We might think that if we give more, work harder, or sacrifice ourselves enough, they'll finally show us the respect we deserve. But the truth is, you don't have to earn respect. You simply deserve it by virtue of being who you are. In relationships with narcissists, respect is often withheld or manipulated. Narcissistic people tend to see others as tools to serve their needs, not as individuals worthy of honor and dignity. They may treat you well when it benefits them and disregard you when it doesn't. In these situations, we mistakenly believe that if we're just good enough or do enough, respect will follow. But this is a dangerous trap because respect is never something you can negotiate with someone who is incapable of offering it genuinely. The reality is, respect should be a given. It should not be something you have to perform for or earn over time through perfect behavior or constant giving. We often confuse respect with approval, thinking that to be respected, we must always be liked, always be agreeable, always be perfect. But that's not respect. That's people-pleasing. And people-pleasing is not a sign of strength or self-worth. It's a sign of insecurity and fear of rejection. We are all deserving of respect because we are human beings with inherent value, not because we meet someone's arbitrary standards or cater to their every whim. In fact, the moment you allow someone to withhold respect from you, you are diminishing your own sense of worth. You are telling yourself, consciously or unconsciously, that you are not worthy of being treated with decency unless you meet certain conditions or expectations set by someone else. But no one should have the power to determine whether or not you are deserving of respect. You are entitled to it simply because you exist. When we continuously seek validation from people who are incapable of respecting us, we teach ourselves that our value is conditional. We teach ourselves that we are only as good as the way we are treated in the moment. If someone is treating us poorly, it must be because we've done something wrong or are somehow lacking. But that's a harmful, false narrative. No one has the right to treat you disrespectfully, regardless of your actions. And you should never feel like you have to prove yourself in order to be worthy of respect. The moment you realize that you don't have to earn respect from anyone is the moment you stop letting people dictate your value. It's the moment you reclaim your dignity and recognize that no one, not even a narcissist, has the power to define your worth. Respect is not a currency that's traded for good behavior. It's a right, a fundamental part of being human. And if someone refuses to give you that, it's a sign that they are not capable of seeing you for who you truly are. They are not capable of treating you as an equal, as someone who deserves to be valued, honored, and loved. What does this mean for you? It means you have to stop negotiating for respect. You have to stop trying to earn something that's already yours. And you have to stop giving your energy to people who believe they can withhold it from you. The most powerful thing you can do is refuse to tolerate disrespect. You set the standard for how you want to be treated, and you don't have to apologize for expecting respect from others. And it's your responsibility to protect yourself by setting boundaries and walking away when necessary. Remember, respect isn't something you have to work for. It's something you simply deserve. You deserve it because you are valuable, you are enough, and you have a right to be treated with dignity at all times. When you start living from this truth, you'll attract the relationships that affirm your worth, and you'll stop wasting your energy on those who are incapable of offering the respect you deserve. Respect is not earned, it's inherent, and it starts with you. Self-worth is one of the most precious things we possess, and it is often far too easy to forget that it is not something that can be bought, bartered, or negotiated. Yet in many relationships, especially with narcissistic individuals, there is an implicit expectation that we must earn respect, love, or validation in order to be seen as worthy. This dangerous narrative tells us that our value is contingent on how much we give, how much we sacrifice, and how much we tolerate. But the truth is that your self-worth is not for sale, and it should never be treated as if it is. When we fall into the trap of believing that our worth is something to be earned, we start measuring ourselves based on the approval or validation of others. We begin to think that if we can just be perfect enough, if we can just please others enough, then we'll finally be worthy of love and respect. But this is not only a false and exhausting standard, it's a recipe for emotional exhaustion and self-disrespect. The value of who you are does not depend on anyone else's opinion of you, no matter how much they may try to convince you otherwise. Narcissistic individuals thrive on control, and one of their primary tactics is to make you feel like you are constantly falling short, that you need to prove your worthiness to them, whether through emotional manipulation, gaslighting, or simply withholding affection or approval. Narcissists create an environment where your worth feels like something that needs to be earned through constant appeasement. This dynamic erodes your sense of self-worth because you start to feel like your value is directly tied to how much you can give to others, how much you can sacrifice for their approval, or how much you are willing to endure in order to gain their love or acceptance. But your self-worth cannot be negotiated or diminished based on how others treat you. It is not something that fluctuates with their behavior. No one gets to define your value but you. When you believe that your worth is for sale, when you think that it depends on how much you give to others, you open yourself up to being exploited. Narcissists have an uncanny ability to make others feel small, to make them feel like their contributions are never enough. Over time, this creates an environment where you may find yourself giving more and more of yourself while receiving less and less in return. You might feel drained, empty, or unappreciated. And yet you continue to give because you're conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to how much you can give or how much you can put up with. This is where the toxic cycle must end. Your worth is not a commodity that can be exchanged for attention, validation, or love. It is inherent and unchanging. You are worthy simply because you exist. No amount of giving, sacrificing, or enduring will increase your worth. It only depletes you. And no one has the right to make you feel that your value is something that can be earned, bought, or bartered. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. Your value is not measured by how much you give to others or how much you can tolerate in unhealthy relationships. Your worth is intrinsic, grounded in the fact that you are a human being with inherent dignity, strengths, and talents. No one gets to take that away from you, no matter how manipulative or toxic they may be. The hardest part about reclaiming your sense of self-worth is learning to see it for yourself We often rely on external sources for validation, our partners, friends, family, or colleagues. And when those sources fail to affirm us, we begin to question our own value. But true self-worth comes from within. It comes from knowing that you are enough as you are without needing anyone's approval to confirm it. Your worth is not contingent on anyone else's recognition or praise. It is anchored in your own sense of who you are and what you deserve. When you begin to internalize this truth, that your self-worth is not for sale, you begin to live from a place of strength. You stop allowing others to define your value based on their expectations or demands. You no longer tolerate relationships where your worth is constantly being challenged or diminished. Instead, you stand firm in your knowledge that you are valuable, regardless of how others treat you. It is essential to establish boundaries in your life that protect this sense of self-worth. Boundaries are not about being unkind. They are about protecting your peace, your mental health, and your emotional integrity. When you stop allowing others to chip away at your sense of self-worth, you start to see yourself more clearly. You begin to recognize that your value is not determined by how much you give or how much you endure. It's determined by the simple fact that you exist, that you are worthy, and that you deserve respect, love, and care. No one, not even a narcissist, has the right to exploit your kindness, your generosity, or your emotional energy. Your self-worth is your own, and it cannot be taken from you unless you allow it. When you stop offering it for sale, when you stop treating it as something that needs to be earned, you empower yourself to live authentically and fully without seeking validation from those who are not capable of seeing your true value. Your self-worth is priceless, and once you recognize that, you will never again allow it to be compromised or diminished by anyone, no matter who they are. Kindness in its truest form should be a source of light and joy, something that uplifts both the giver and the receiver. It's a powerful force that can create connection, heal wounds, and inspire growth. However, when kindness is extended in a relationship where it is not reciprocated or respected, it can quickly transform from a nurturing act into an exhausting one. Instead of being a source of strength and positivity, kindness can become a drain on your emotional and mental resources, leaving you feeling depleted, resentful, and disconnected. The act of kindness should never feel like an obligation, nor should it leave you feeling empty or drained. It should feel like a gift, a gesture of goodwill and love that brings you closer to the people you care about and strengthens the bonds between you. When kindness is met with appreciation, respect, and reciprocity, it can become a beautiful cycle where both parties are nourished and enriched by the exchange. But when kindness is taken for granted, manipulated, or used to serve the needs of others at the expense of your own well-being, it stops being a nourishing act and starts to feel like an emotional burden. The key distinction here is reciprocity. Kindness should never be a one-sided transaction. While giving without expectation of something in return is a noble ideal, we must recognize that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. True kindness in relationships should create a space for both people to feel valued and supported. If your kindness is constantly being met with indifference, manipulation, or disregard, it can quickly lead to emotional exhaustion and burnout. When you are constantly giving and never receiving, whether it's love, respect, appreciation, or care, you will inevitably start to feel like you're running on empty. You may find yourself feeling resentful, confused, or even angry, wondering why your kindness isn't being returned in kind. In relationships with narcissists, this dynamic is often magnified. Narcissistic individuals can be particularly adept at taking and never giving, making you feel like your kindness is a tool for them to use rather than a gift to be appreciated. They may manipulate you into thinking that your kindness is never enough, that you must always give more, be more, and do more in order to receive their approval or affection. This constant giving without receiving can quickly drain you, leaving you feeling depleted, undervalued, and emotionally fragile. The problem is that this kind of dynamic can be incredibly hard to break. We are often conditioned to believe that kindness is a virtue, something we should give freely no matter the cost. But true kindness isn't about sacrificing your own well-being for the sake of others. It's about lifting others up while also protecting your own emotional and mental health. It's about recognizing when your kindness is being used against you and learning to set healthy boundaries to preserve your energy and sense of self. When kindness becomes a drain, it's no longer a gift, it's a demand. And this is where we have to be careful. We must ask ourselves, am I being kind to someone because I want to or because I feel like I have to? Am I offering my time, energy, and love because it is uplifting and fulfilling, or because I'm afraid of disappointing someone or losing their approval? When kindness is driven by obligation rather than genuine desire, it stops being a positive force in your life and it becomes a weight that holds you down. The key to avoiding this drain is to be mindful of how your kindness makes you feel. True kindness should lift you, not deplete you. It should be an act of generosity that enriches your life and the lives of others, not something that leaves you feeling empty, taken for granted, or used. If your kindness is making you feel exhausted, unappreciated, or emotionally worn out, it's time to reassess the dynamics of the relationship. You need to ask yourself whether you're engaging in this behavior because it is truly helping and healing, or because you are trying to earn approval, avoid conflict, or gain something in return. One of the most important aspects of protecting yourself from the draining effect of one-sided kindness is setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not about being unkind or selfish. They are about recognizing that you have finite emotional resources and that you are entitled to protect those resources. Setting boundaries allows you to give kindness freely and generously without compromising your own well-being. When you set clear limits with others, you create space for your kindness to be a healthy and positive force rather than a draining one. It's also important to remember that kindness should be a reflection of your own values, not something that is contingent on how others behave. You can choose to be kind because it aligns with who you are, but you also have the right to withdraw your kindness when it is being taken for granted or used in unhealthy ways. Kindness is a beautiful thing, but it should never come at the expense of your own mental and emotional health. Being kind does not mean being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, or endlessly giving. It means choosing to extend love, compassion, and care in a way that is nurturing to both you and the other person. When your kindness is genuinely received and reciprocated, it creates a cycle of positivity and support. But when your kindness is drained by others, it's essential to recognize that this is not healthy and that you are allowed to protect yourself and your energy. Kindness should lift, not drain. If you're feeling drained, it's time to reevaluate where and how you are giving and to make sure that your kindness is not being exploited or misused. You deserve relationships where your kindness is appreciated and reciprocated, where you are valued as much as you value others. And you have every right to step back, protect your energy, and choose where you extend your kindness in a way that nourishes both you and the people you care about. Saying no can often feel like one of the most difficult things to do, especially in a world that constantly expects us to be available, helpful, and accommodating. We are taught from a young age that saying yes is a sign of kindness, that being agreeable is a virtue, and that we should always be there for others no matter the cost to ourselves. However, saying no is in reality one of the most profound acts of self-love you can practice. It is a powerful declaration of your own boundaries, your worth, and your right to protect your energy and well-being. The struggle with saying no often stems from the fear of disappointing others or causing conflict. We worry that if we say no, we'll be seen as selfish, rude, or uncaring. We fear that others will think we're unkind or unwilling to help. But this is a false narrative. In truth, saying no is an act of profound self-respect. It is a way of acknowledging your own needs, limitations, and desires and choosing to honor them. When you say no, you are essentially saying, I value myself enough to prioritize my own well-being and boundaries, and I will not sacrifice those for the sake of someone else's expectations. Saying no is not about rejecting others. It's about protecting yourself from being overextended, overwhelmed, and emotionally drained. It's about recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give your best self to others if you are constantly saying yes to things that deplete you. If you say yes to every request, every favor, every demand on your time, you'll eventually burn out, and when you burn out, you have nothing left to give, not to yourself and not to anyone else. Saying no is your way of ensuring that you have the energy, the space, and the emotional resources to care for yourself and to show up as your best, most authentic self in the world. One of the hardest things about saying no is the deep-seated belief that our worth is tied to how much we do for others. Many of us have internalized the idea that to be valuable, we must constantly serve, help, and support those around us. This belief is often reinforced by cultural messages that equate selflessness with goodness and selfishness with badness. But in reality, saying no is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of self-care. It is the recognition that you cannot help others in meaningful ways if you don't take care of yourself first. When you say no, you are honoring your own needs, desires, and feelings. You are saying, I deserve to take up space. I deserve to prioritize my well-being. I deserve to say no without guilt or shame. This is not an easy thing to do, especially if you have spent a lifetime putting others' needs before your own. It requires courage to break free from the pattern of people-pleasing, of saying yes to everyone else's demands while neglecting your own needs. But it is essential for your mental, emotional, and physical health. Saying no is not about closing yourself off from others. It's about creating boundaries that allow you to be present in the ways that truly matter. It's about learning to say yes to the things that align with your values, your goals, and your well-being, and saying no to the things that drain you, diminish you, or cause you harm. When you practice saying no, you begin to respect your time, your energy, and your peace of mind, and you set the standard for how you expect to be treated by others. Moreover, saying no teaches others how to treat you. When you are clear about your boundaries and willing to enforce them, you are teaching the people around you that your time and energy are valuable. You are showing them that you are worthy of respect and that you will not tolerate being overburdened or mistreated. People will learn that they cannot take advantage of you, and they will come to respect your decisions. It may be uncomfortable at first, especially if you are not used to saying no, but over time, others will start to understand that your boundaries are firm and they will learn to respect them. It's also important to recognize that saying no is not always a permanent decision. You have the right to say no in the moment and then later change your mind if it feels right. It's not about rigidly closing doors. It's about choosing what is best for you in any given moment. You can say no to something now and later decide to say yes if you feel that it aligns with your needs and values at that time. The key is to give yourself the freedom to make decisions based on what's best for you without guilt or second guessing. Saying no is also an important tool for reducing stress and anxiety. When you are constantly saying yes to things that don't serve you, you're building a life full of obligations and commitments that leave you feeling overwhelmed. You may find yourself rushing from one thing to the next, trying to meet everyone's needs while neglecting your own. But when you start saying no, you create space in your life for the things that matter most. You can breathe easier, knowing that you are not constantly stretching yourself too thin. Saying no allows you to create a life that is more aligned with your values, where your energy is directed toward what truly brings you joy and fulfillment. Ultimately, saying no is a declaration of your worth. It's a statement that you matter, that your needs are just as important as anyone else's, and that you have the right to make choices that prioritize your well-being. It is an act of self-love that empowers you to live more authentically, more fully, and more peacefully. It's a practice that allows you to create healthier relationships, both with yourself and with others. And while it may feel uncomfortable at first, it is one of the most powerful things you can do for your mental, emotional, and physical health. When you start saying no, you are choosing yourself, and in doing so, you're choosing to live a life that is more balanced, more fulfilling, and more in alignment with who you truly are. It's time to stop being kind to those who exploit your kindness. It's time to take back your life, your energy, and your sense of self-worth. Be kind to those who honor and respect you. Be kind to yourself. Stop giving to those who will never give back, and start investing in relationships that are reciprocal and nourishing. Kindness isn't about being endlessly available for others. It's about being available to the people who see you, respect you, and love you for who you truly are. Don't settle for anything less. You are enough, and you deserve relationships that affirm that every single day. Thank you.